Looks like we are live. So, got the loading sign up there. It's my new Mobius strip that I made. I think it's pretty cool. I love the lighting on it. Anyway, so I'm gonna go get everything all set up, all the notifications out there, and then we will start making this planet. It's pretty awesome. Basically, I got hired on to this movie production crew, and they wanted to make a like a short film. So I was in charge of making some of the the environments and stuff. So I started making this planet. It's gonna be the opening scene. Spaceship flies in towards the planet. Um, turn off the um, I guess I could turn off the Mobius strip. Maybe I'll just leave it on. Basically, I'm just putting out, hey, there's a stream stuff. People see it. So we'll leave the Mobius strip up while I'm doing that. How's everybody's day going? See you here, Mad Studios. It's nice to see you. All right, so there's one, and oh, that's cool. That automatically did it. I just set up a bot in my Discord server. It's really nice because it actually automatically uploads whenever I post. I've got one more link to post. And that should be it. All right. And that should be it. All right, so let's get started. The base of any Blender project is naturally to delete the default cube and replace it. In this case, since we're making a planet, we're going to replace it with a UV sphere. And then Control 1 to add a subdivision surface and shade smooth. This is our planet. Pretty dull. Basically, we're going to use a bunch of noise textures and such to kind of give it the textures. So let's go ahead, go over to the Materials tab, New. We're going to call this Land. And go and open the shader editor. I always open it from the top. I feel like that's better for kind of like space stuff. So we're going to go World first so we can make the starry background. And that's just a noise texture and a color ramp. We'll plug color into background and color into factor. You should see if we go into rendered view, we have this background now. We're going to crank this up to something like 500 or something and kind of drag this. Just gonna make the darks darker. Just kind of gonna drag it until it makes something that looks like space. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And this light right here, we're gonna turn into a sun, make it 4 or so. I don't know. Set the camera That way we can position this correctly. And we're just going to kind of place this so that you can kind of see. But yeah, something like that, where you can see a little bit of it, but not a whole lot. Then we'll go view, camera, lock camera. Just kind of drag that off to the side. Make it a little bit bigger. That should be good. All right. Now we're going to switch from world. We're going to switch this back to object, and now we're going to start actually working on the land texture. Let's get out of camera view for right now. So we want to start with the noise texture. Noise is going to be basically everything that's going to make up the land is going to be a noise texture. So plug that in, give it a second to load. Now you can see we have this colorful texture. I'm going to kind of crank this up, maybe add in color ramp. And we're just going to kind of make this smaller, add in a little bit of detail. I'm going to crank it up to like 8 or something. This is going to be our land mass. So, I don't know, maybe this one has less land, something like that. And now this cool trick that I learned is to duplicate the noise texture, and plug the color into the vector. And that just kind of gives you more variation. You know, you get a more land mass looking shape. And you can mess around with this a little bit to kind of something like that, maybe a couple big land masses and such. Wait, did I not? I didn't turn off the Mobius strip. Sorry about that. Let's turn that off. What I'm curious about. This shouldn't affect the stream, I think. Right? Does not look like it. Go. Sorry, I'm just opening up the nodes so I can remember exactly what they were. All right, so we have our, I cannot remember it. Yeah, our noise textures and our color ramp. We're just kind of, on this one, we're going to do Control T with Node Wrangler to kind of add in the mapping and texture coordinates and all that. And this is basically, this is our land, right? So it's going to look like something like that in the render. So this is our land, and let's go ahead, drag this all kind of close together. Basically what we're making right now, this is not going to be, you know, actually what our land looks like. This is just the base, I guess is what you would call it. This is going to be the basis for all of the other textures, you know, the roughness, the specular, all that. I'm going to add in a mix node, change that to lighten. Give it a minute to load. And basically what this is going to do is just allow us to add more nodes down here that control, you know, a little bit more detail as well as the roughness and such. So we're going to go another noise texture and color ramp. Let's go, you know, we could actually just copy this, bring it down here, Control T on this to add in our mapping and stuff. And then we're just going to change this back to like 5 and this back to 2, something like that. And plug this into color. Maybe drag this a little bit closer. Yeah, something like that. And we drag this closer so the whites are brighter. Now basically what these are, what we're going to do is we're going to make these really small, something like that, and then bring up the blacks, just so that there's a couple of like stripes to kind of just add a little bit of detail to it. And this is our base, right? So this is what our planet's base is going to look like. So from here, we drag in a bunch of color ramps. Let's go color ramp. Probably about 3 of them. drag this color ramp over here, and that's going to go into base color. And then essentially what we're going to do with this is create the, I'm going to put like 5 of these in here, something like that. Hopefully it doesn't crash. Blender's been crashing a lot recently, and it's been pretty frustrating. But it seems like everything's holding up well. Alright, so as you can see, we have our land here, and I'm just kind of gonna, drag this up a little bit, and then change around some of these colors. So our first one is going to be the oceans. So our oceans are going to be, like a bluish color. That's a decent ocean. The next is kind of like the edge of the oceans, as well as some of the internal parts of the land, kind of the lower, the more sea level kind of stuff. So we're just going to make this kind of a mossy green, maybe something like that. And then basically each one of these steps is higher elevations and such. So we'll just make it get greener and greener and greener, maybe. Actually, let's make this more of like a savanna kind of thing. Make it more yellow. Something like this. And that looks kind of fun. I think this one's maybe just a little bit too strong. Maybe we make this one. Yeah, we'll make this one like a clay rocky surface or something. Make this one just a little bit lighter. Yeah, so basically this is, we'll call it like clay fields, and then it transforms into a desert by the end. So that's going to be, this is our land, and if you can see right now, it looks pretty decent. We got some nice land masses there. Next comes the roughness. And so this is going to be, we'll say this one, move that down, put this one here, plug it into roughness, and drag the same color from our lighten. We're going to drag that into, don't crash, the factor of this color ramp. And that's going to allow us to make the oceans glossy, and the land, you can see right now, the land is not very glossy, but the oceans are perfectly glossy. And we don't want that per se. We're just going to drag this up a little bit. And we want to make this black a gray. Right, so that the most or the least roughness it can have is not fully reflective. And now you can see, kind of figure out, where's my point rotation? Oh, that's weird. I'm going to be orbiting the planet. Now you can see when we go over a land mass, it doesn't hardly even reflect, but when we go over the ocean, it's got that little bit of glare on it, and that just kind of adds. Well, Seth, difficult question there. Sorry, I got off topic. I was looking at the chat. Probably. Anyway, so this is our plan, and then you can see if we go here, you can't see the landmass here, but you can see, or you can't see the reflection on the landmass, but you can see the reflection on the oceans. So our last and final color ramp is going to be plugged into a bump node, and this is going to give us that geometry that makes it look like, not just a flat surface, because obviously this is space. Everything's going to be very very small, but you still want a little bit of variation in the detail. So we're going to plug same lighten node into the factor, and color into height, and normal to normal. Now you can see, after it loads, it's super detailed. This would be what you would want if you were just kind of making like a what are they called? A topology map is what, not topology. Topology? The maps, you know what I'm talking about. You know, the maps that have the heights and everything. But it's way too detailed for space. So we're just kind of gonna make it, if you remember these parts right here, these are just kind of like small islands and like the edge of the ocean. So we want to kind of make it so that those are such, you know, just kind of up the dark values so you don't see as much of the bump on those. And then just kind of, you know, make some flat spots at the top by increasing the whites. And then the main part is decrease the strength a ton. Something like point, you know, point 125 or something. Just where you can see it's got that little tiny bit of detail, but pretty much it's nothing. It just gives it that little bit of nice variation. So now that we have this is our land, right? This is complete, I would say. So now let's go ahead and take this sphere and we're going to duplicate it and remove the land texture. And now you see our planet is blank again. I'm going to scale this one up to like 1.01, very small change. And this we're going to name clouds. We'll name this one planet or land, I guess. And our clouds are going to be pretty similar to the planet in that they're all noise texture based, but also we're going to have to use a transparent node to make it so you can see, you know, the parts that don't have a cloud, you can see the land beneath it. Let's go ahead and call this texture clouds. And we're going to go in here, drag material over, add in a mix shader, or not ambient, mix shader node. And go ahead and drag this one to the bottom just to make it easier. And on the top, we're going to put a transparent BSDF. Drag that into the top. And then connected to that transparent BSDF, or actually not to the BSDF itself, but to the factor of the mix shader, we're going to add a noise texture and color ramp. Let's go ahead and noise texture. Drag this down so we have access to the factor and a color ramp. And drag color into factor and color into factor here. Now you can see, well, nothing changed, right? So what's wrong? And that's because we're going to be doing this in Eevee. So we need to go down to the material, go to settings, and you see this blend mode here. This is basically kind of telling it how to render what we're giving it. And we want to turn this to alpha blend. And now you can see, you can kind of see the land through it. And if we increase the darks, you can see some spots have clouds and other spots you can just see the land beneath it. And that's going to be key for creating kind of the atmosphere cloudy look without covering up the land. We're just going to drag in the whites a little bit, kind of maybe make the detail 9 or something. And then you know, I don't know. The clouds are really up to, you know, how you want them to look. Kind of don't really know how to describe it, but based on, you know, your atmosphere, you know, is it like Mustafar, right? Is it a hot planet? If so, the clouds are going to act different than if it was, you know, an ice planet, or, you know, something like Earth, where it's just a regular kind of, you know, livable atmosphere and stuff. But for the most part, a cloud is going to be about 9 detail, a scale of 8, I would say, and then just messing with distortion and roughness. So let's go scale 8. See, there's more clouds now. Make more clouds. Like that. And then roughness, I usually put it 0.65, and that gives us, you know, quite a bit more detail in the clouds. And then distortion, you don't want to add too much, just something like 0.76 or something. You know, adds a little bit of swirl to the clouds, but not a whole lot. let's go ahead and just mess with the color ramp until we get the right number of clouds. Maybe I'll make this 8, a little bit swirlier. And now you can see we got pretty nice stuff here. Now I'm actually going to change the shadow mode over here underneath blend mode. I'm going to change this to alpha hashed, and that's going to allow us to, kind of get more of that shadow that the clouds would cast onto the land. It's going to be very small since we're on a space scale here, but there's still going to be that kind of shadow. But I would say, for the most part, that's pretty good. So before we get to doing the actual atmosphere itself, I'm going to quickly create the sun. We're going to add in another UV sphere, shrink this down to 0.15, I guess, something like that. And then just drag it out a bit. Drag it over, something like that. The dimensions really aren't specific. You just kind of have to go into camera view. I'm going to scale this up a little bit. It's going to be a big sun. Actually, what if we made this? What if we made this a blue star? That would add I think that would add a really nice touch. Something new, Let's shade smooth this. Drag it up just until like the edge is behind the planet, but not too much. We're going to want to make this an emission so that the sun lamp isn't affecting it. And also, it emits its own light. Let's go ahead and make this a blue star. And under settings, we're going to turn on bloom so you get that kind of glow to it. And maybe just for fun, we'll come in here and we'll, most graph texture, go height to strength, shrink it down a little bit, and mix this with a duplicate of the emission shader. That way, I'm going to spend some time on the star. That way, we have that little bit of, I hate the scaling here. Okay, let me just center my orbit around this star. Yeah, okay, so that should be good. So now you see we have this kind of more starry look. I'm actually going to go Control 1 just to make it smoother. Let's go ahead and add in something like that. Maybe we'll make this actually darker. Give it that cool starry look. Yeah, I think that looks pretty nice. It'll be a blue giant, I think is what they call that. Hello, person 57623. Did you ever have a storyline behind those numbers? I forget. What you missed, Isaiah, is we created the land and the clouds. They're separate spheres, so I could actually separate the clouds from the land. Let's put that back. Yeah, and then we created this blue star, which is kind of, an anomaly for most of my things. Normally I just do a regular, yellow sun or something. But I felt like maybe a blue star would add a nice detail to it. We'll make it bright. Blue stars are normally pretty bright. And next comes the funnest part. Funnest? I don't know if it's the funnest. I wouldn't necessarily call it that. But that is the atmosphere. And we're going to create, actually, we'll just duplicate the clouds again and scale it up. Yes, 1.1 or something. 0.05. I see that's pretty good. And remove the cloud texture. We don't want that on there. And this one is actually going to be, we're going to name this atmosphere for the texture and rename the model atmosphere. We're going to go ahead and delete the principal BSDF and put in a volume scatter. Put that into volume. And because this is Eevee, we get this big old box. You know, if we're in cycles, it looks nice. But this is Eevee. We can't have nice things in the viewport. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to edit a couple of things just to kind of make it follow the circular pattern. That way, you know, you don't have this big old cloud box. It's kind of weird. So we're going to need, for this, we're going to need a multiply, a color ramp, a gradient, and then mapping and texture coordinates. So let's go ahead and start with the multiply and color ramp. Let's add in a math node, which we're going to set to multiply a color ramp. And we're just going to drag these in. Actually, you know, I'll do that once it's all plugged in so you guys can see what that does. And then we're going to need gradient texture, as well as our mapping and texture coordinate. So the color ramp, that first thing goes into the top of the multiply. So we go color to the top value, and this value goes to density. Now you can see it got a little bit more see-through. Our gradient, we're going to put the factor. I believe it's factor. Yeah, factor into the factor of the color ramp. And that, and change it to spherical. That's going to be important later on. Now we're just going to drag this up a little bit, drag this in, and change this value from 0.5 to about 3, I would say. Something like that. Now, it's kind of odd. It's not quite looking right. So let me figure out what I did previously that made this different. Oh, I'm dumb. We have the texture coordinate on generated. It's object. So put it to object. And now you can see our atmosphere follows that spherical look. Let's just drag it out a little bit, something like that. Now you can see we have an atmosphere, but it's the wrong color. We want this to be kind of bluish color, something like that. That looks pretty good, I'd say. And we're going to, this could be closer. Basically what this color ramp was doing was just kind of making it, you know, closer, farther, you know, it's controlling the density of it. Yeah, and then over in the settings here, we're going to go volumetrics. And basically this end, we're just going to change it down to like 6 or something. Maybe, actually I think I found 8 was best. And that just kind of gives us more quality. It's not trying to render, you know, all this stuff, which is good for performance and all that. And our samples, just kick it up to like 128. That'll control the rings you probably saw. It just kind of makes them, you know, a little bit cleaner. I'm gonna turn on screen space reflections. It really doesn't do anything here, but I think it looks nicer. And you know, this is pretty much it. As you can see, it's basically all done. There's just a couple more things you can kind of do to make it, you know, a little bit, don't really know how to describe it, just a little bit nicer. So we're gonna play probably with the color ramp a little bit, that kind of stuff. Starting with, hang on, I'm going to check the settings on the old one. Oh, that was another thing, was the distribution right here. Turn that all the way down to 0. I found works best. You could turn it up, but then you can see the rings more, you know, especially as I rotate it. But if you turn distribution down, it's much smoother. Yeah, that's basically it. for making a procedural planet. You know, and then of course you could add your spaceships or whatever, lasers and stuff, explosions, everything necessary for a Star Wars film. That's what I was planning to use the original planet for that I used as the thumbnail. Was it was going to be a Star Wars film. I'm gonna change the start to 1. That makes it nicer as well. Just kind of narrow down the spectrum of what it's doing. But yeah, there's always more you can do. You can come in here and then the black makes it go closer in toward the planet, and the white controls the brightness on the inside. So if these are right next to each other, you see it's pretty much a dense, bright atmosphere all the way from the inside. So you kind of want, for most planets, it's like a small little ring on the inside, and then maybe toss a third one in there. Make it like a dark gray or something, just to kind of give it a little bit more variation. You get that, just kind of that nice bright ring directly around the planet, with it just kind of fading off the farther away it goes. And then so far as camera placement and all that, it's pretty much nothing you have to do there. So yeah, this is pretty much your final render. And then you could always change the color of the star, up the shader editor again. If you wanted, select the star, say maybe you wanted a red star instead, you could have something like that. Although blue has a lot better distinction. You could have a red star, or just a plain yellow star. Maybe shrink it down a little bit. Then I normally take blue and I'll turn down the threshold, make it just a little bit red. Not enough where the planet starts to glow and all the stars and stuff, but just just a little bit. You get more brightness around the sun. Yeah, it's pretty fun though. And that actually looks pretty nice. Mixing the blues and the yellows, that makes a nice star. But yeah, that's how you make procedural planet in Eevee. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I might work with this. I might kind of come up here and append. Let me try and find I made a Star Destroyer at one point. Let me try and find it. Maybe I'll grab this and bring in a Star Destroyer. Very big. Hang on a second. Scale is 0.1. Oh, that's still big. 0.1. 0.2. That's decent. We'll bring in a Star Destroyer. What's Star Wars without a Star Destroyer? Maybe rotate a little bit toward the planet. Ooh, or maybe, now this is an idea. We're going to make this one a little bit fancier. Do this, and go to the Z view, so we can just kind of place it. I'm just going to duplicate these and scale them down to 5 or something. And now, move these over, not inside the planet, but move them over, put them down, stuff like that. Maybe one goes up, right? And now, this planet has a blockade. Every planet needs a good blockade. Yeah, so you could start your Star Wars scene, something like this, and then kind of have the camera follow a ship coming in, and then the TIE fighters come out of the Star Destroyers, all that, and your space battle. Yeah. But I'd say I always think it's really funny. You look at this, like, okay, I see this Star Destroyer blockade and all that, and then you zoom out of the camera view, and everything always looks much worse than it does in camera view. That's always the funniest thing about animating. I made this bedroom for engineering, and you look at the bedroom and it looks absolutely stunning. You zoom out, everything is just like all the walls of the bedroom are just planes and stuff. Yeah, I showed the render to my engineering teacher, and he said the render looks great. But when I showed him the non-camera view, he nearly had a heart attack, and it was funny because he's the kind of guy where if you don't have it like 100% correct, you get like an F on the test or whatever. So it's really is really funny when I showed him that I didn't actually have walls. What do you guys think about making like a Star Wars scene right now? I'm already in the model and stuff. You guys want to make something fun? Maybe not the lasers yet, because lasers can be very troublesome. We could just have like a ship coming in. Curious, does this look? See, that's a nice thing I like about procedural planets, and that is, you could have your thing fly in towards this Death Star here, and your planet still looks fine up close. Whereas if you use an image texture, everything just kind of goes rapidly downhill. I do remember though. I was gonna use JS placement to add the greebles to these and make them look Star Warsy. I also need to turn down the roughness. Oh, goodness. Too shiny. Star Destroyers are not shiny. I think for right now, though, I'm just going to end the stream here. We made the planet. We gave it a blockade. But it's pretty Star Warsy already. So I'll be definitely working on this more, and I'll post a Star Wars scene probably later on this week. I don't know. I'm leaving on Friday to go on vacation, so there won't be any animations after Friday for like a good week or two. But I definitely, I'm glad that this worked out, because the first time I made the planet, like all of the noise textures and stuff, nothing was matching up, and then the bump maps and stuff, they were like either on or off, like it was either too rough or not rough enough. So I'm really glad that everything kind of worked out this time. But yeah, thank you everyone so much for watching. Hopefully this tutorial helps and you're able to make your own plans, make your own scenes. But that'll be it for today. So thank you everyone, and goodbye.